How would you interpret it?
A child that's not raised by the village,
Who's not embraced by the village,
embraced by the village, will burn it down to feel the warmth.
Yes.
I agree with that proverb, and I say it this way. If you don't take care of the child, it will just come back to haunt you. Yeah, it will hit you back. So we have the responsibility to take care of the current generation. Otherwise, at the time when we need them, we are not as strong. Will have already been they will just come back to destroy us. Yes. So even as a country, if we don't take care of the youth now, then they're a time bomb.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Okay, so the placement service, give us a bit of a refresher course in terms of what this service does and where it sits.
Okay. Well, the placement service is a state corporation under the Ministry of Education. We are established under the Universities Act with a mandate to first coordinate the placement of government-sponsored students to universities and colleges in Kenya. We are also the body that is mandated to develop and conduct career guidance in our schools. These are the secondary schools mainly. We are a repository of data because we have data, so we are expected to maintain data for placement for over the years. So I can tell you we have data from as way back as 1989 when we had the first KCSC. And using this data, we advise government. So we have an advisory role to, as we retain this data, we also provide advice to government.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is great because one of the things that you talk about is career guidance in schools. So are we saying that for all the however hundreds of thousands of schools around the thousands of schools around the country, that career guidance is something that then must be offered at each school, and this comes under the care of COOPS? Does it actually happen?
Yes, and just before I go into that, we also have a responsibility to disseminate information on the available programs in the country, in the various learning institutions in Kenya. We disseminate information on, the requirements or the minimum criteria for this to pursue these programs.
Right.
We are also expected to disseminate information on the cost of the programs. And you remember that came up quite a bit during the new funding model. But it wasn't anything new. We were just doing our work in terms of getting the public to know the cost of the programs. On the aspect of career guidance, yes, we have about 11,000 schools, secondary schools in Kenya. So we may not be able to go to each and every school. So we have a program, we have designed a guide, a facilitator's guide for teachers. So our target is to reach every teacher with this information so that they may be able to disseminate. But where institutions or schools invite us, we actually make an effort to go there, but we also say we cannot, it's not efficient, in terms of costs to get to every school. So we ask the schools, we encourage them to look at the schools around them so that we visit at least 10 schools, an average of 10 schools together. So if there's a school in even Alliance, what are the schools around Alliance, including the day schools? Because we do these activities mainly over the weekend. What are the schools that are around that we can have that? So for career guidance, we also appreciate there are many players, but I think it is important that those that engage, because we've seen a lot of motivational speakers going to schools in the name of career guidance. There's a very, those are worlds apart. Motivational speakers and career guidance are very different. A motivational speaker will tell you about themselves and how they got to where they are. While career guidance, we want to talk about the child themselves. What is it they want to do? So that they don't mimic this person who's a motivational speaker. They identify themselves and just, get their own path in life.
You talk about career guidance, which is important, and because you go to different schools and the way you look at it is you focus on the child and what it is they want to do. That is in itself feedback mechanism, also helps you in data, just knowing what majority of these students are talking about, because you're going to 10 schools. Out of 10 schools, you would gauge where a majority of these students are looking at. And with that information in your depository, do you then use that perhaps to even advise government on areas to look into, to focus into in terms of policy formation, and to just inform where the country is moving forward, or where the country should focus into areas to improve in, areas to invest more in, based off information that you've received from these very stakeholders who are the students? Is that the direction you take?
Yes, actually the engagement is very interesting, because on one side we are with the policymakers, and on the other side we listen to what the children are saying. Now when we go to the schools, we establish what really influences your decision on the career you want to take. And you will hear a lot of times the children will say, I want to be a doctor because that's what my parents want me to be. And my parents want me to be that doctor because that's what my dad wanted to be, but he was not able to get there because of lack of school fees, for example. So there are many, we are able to pick the many things that influence career guidance. Some are good, some are really saddening. I can give an example of, and I will mention the school, where students told me they want to do supply chain, a career in supply chain. And that's the time in the media we had, news about supply chain officers in some institutions who would even fly home. Others will say they want to be a policeman. But, that starts the conversation. Why do you want to be what you want to be? So we now get them to understand that, one, you must have a passion. What is it that you love doing? There are those who love singing. There are those who say, I love helping people. So we start the conversation there. What makes you happy? What gives you satisfaction? And then, what are you good at? I may love singing, but I don't have a very good voice. So how can I work on my voice? I love helping people, but I don't like the sight of blood. So how can you start matching this? And then what you're good at, we start looking at the subjects you're pursuing.
Okay.
So that conversation has to start as early as Form 2 or what we are calling junior school, because now it starts informing the subjects that you have to take to match the career that you want, to match your passion.
Okay.
And then now the next stage is, what are the jobs around what you love doing and what you're good at? Then what career can that get you into in terms of what life issues will you be solving, in a society? When you start looking at where you live, your community, then your country, and now we are looking at the globe. What are the needs? So that conversation starts heading towards the labor market. Yeah? What are the jobs that now are available? Not about the job availability more, but the needs in the community. And that's when we start seeing the need for healthcare workers in the diaspora. And then the next question is, if I get into this job, will it pay me well? So the issue of pay is important. The discussion is important, but it needs to come at the end. It shouldn't be the first item that we are looking at.
Okay. Let's look at last year a little bit. How many people sat for KCSE? How many students sat for KCSE last year or the year before? And what percentage joined university? Let's look at 2024. The KCSE learners, how many of them joined university? And from last year, 2025, how many of them will join university this year?
Okay. In 2024, we had, the class of 2024, we had at least 246 thereabout qualifying. This is the C plus and above.
246,000.
Around 200 and let's go with 245. I don't have that's the 2024 class.
Okay.
2025 class.
Sorry, Dr. 245,000
yes,
students qualified for university out of a total of how many Form 4 who sat KCSE?
I will give it 900.
Out of 900,000. Okay.
We had a percentage of about 26%.
26%, can we call it attrition through towards university? Okay, so 2025?
Okay, 2025, we had 270,000 getting C plus and above.
Out of, give or take, the same 900,000?
993 thereabout.
Almost a million.
So we are looking at 27%.
Okay. So there was an improvement on both scales of 1% of the students who then finished with the required mark to get to university, and also then an improvement, but then also we're looking at this in over an increase of the number of students who actually sat the paper.
Yes, the population.
Is the grade still the determinant factor of university intake or admission or acceptance at university level?
Yes. This is a conversation that in terms of measuring performance based on those that go to university is a conversation that needs to start dying off, as we get into CBC, because I think we have overemphasized the grades, and measuring using the number of people who get to university. Remember, there are those who don't get a C plus, and they take another pathway in life. They start off with a certificate, they go to a diploma, and they still end up in the university. But nobody talks about them. So I think we have glorified the grades C plus and above, and that's a conversation will definitely change when we look at the competency-based education.
Yeah.
Yes, as we face off 844, we also look at those that qualified. Not everyone opted to go to the university. And for us, it is a good thing because it means people are starting to realize it's not about their university. It's about pursuing what you love doing and what you're good at.
So then wouldn't it be time then, I mean, I guess in line with what you're saying, because it's clear from what you're saying, that not everybody is opting to go to, and this number that we're talking about is for public universities. We're not even saying that a number of them will go to private universities. This is for public universities. But that number is glaring. 993,000 KCSE students in 2025. 270,000 of them are the ones that will be accepted at a public university. That's 723,000 students not accepted at a public university. We don't know how many will go to a private university. How many of those go to TVETs? How many of those, from what you've seen in the past, what happens to these over 700,000? Because still, in 2024, we're still looking at over 650,000 students. Where do they go? And if this is a pattern for 2 years, we can probably see the same pattern for 5. Where do they go?
Now, that has always been my question after the release of the exam. Because once we place, I can account for at least 300,000. Because of those that go to university, there are those that go into TVETs. And this time, we've been taking those that score as low as an E. Grade E, we have something for them. What we lack as a country, and it is a direction we have taken, is to centralize our data. Because in the education sector, you find even at the basic level, we have students who do IGCSE. We have those that are being homeschooled, but who knows where every child is? I think once they get a birth certificate, then they become free molecules. Some are in the country, some are out of the country. So we have at the ministry, under the guidance and the leadership of the ministry, this is the CS and our PSS, we are developing Kenya information education system. Because we've had a system that looks at the primary level. But now we want to combine the system that looks at the primary, system that will collect data on TVETs and the universities, and everybody is supposed to feed into this system. So that when we talk about not knowing where 700,000 students are, then we should be able to say this percentage. Like for COPs, I can tell you when we have the placement, the C+ and above, I can account for 85% of those students. I can tell you these ones are in private universities through our placement. These ones are in public. This group went to KMTC. These ones are in national polytechnics. And now we have other institutions that are not under the Ministry of Education, like the School of the Morendat School of Gas, Oil and Gas. I can tell you those that have gone there. So I can account for 85% of C+ and above. So we want to get to a place in the country where we can account for everyone. Precisely everyone.
So that means that because we do not have a centralized data today, that as a country, correct me if I'm wrong, as a country we do not know the kind of resources we want for for different sectors in the country, because there are those, like you said, who take a different path. TVETs go to other colleges out there. But because we do not have a centralized data system, we do not know, say, for example, how many plumbers we would need because of affordable housing is in here. How many plumbers do we need to ensure that gets to be done and be done right? And where do we get them? How many electricians do we want? How many engineers are there, or foremen? Because if you look at what other jurisdictions are saying, there's a reason why they're saying we want tradesmen, we want carpenters in our country, because we have seen of our data that the young people are not getting into this line of career. Therefore, we are asking for other nationalities to come in and feed into the deficit. But we do not have that information. Even if you want to send Kenyans outside, we do not have that data. So how does that then communicate into the economy vis-a-vis what we need as a resource for the country to move forward?
I really love that engagement now, because what we do is we have the Ministry of Labour that looks at the labor trends and the labor market. We have the National Employment Authority that is able to tell us how many jobs, both locally and internationally, how many jobs are, and what are the skills that are really needed. So we actually have some work that started last year, where we are looking at, with the leadership of our PS Inyangala, on enrollment planning. So, and we have the different state agencies coming on board, including the Ministry of Labour, telling us these are the trends in the labour market. And then on our end, we have now the data of students as COPs. We have data on students who have been pursuing certain programs over the last 5 years, so that we are able to fill that gap and say, are we training? Is there are we aligning to the labor needs, both international and local labor needs, so that we know what are the programs we need to put more effort, and that now informs career guidance. You can see it's
for sure.
Yes, but you see, for that to take place clearly, you don't need noise, because there's a lot of critical thinking that goes into that. There's a lot of research, and we are even getting the various skills from the universities. Kenya is known to have people who are very good as think tanks.
Yeah.
So getting a team, we've been, as COPs, actually taking, with the support from the ministry, from our peers, it's a journey that we've started walking last year.
So you may have heard that Kenya is going to Singapore. And one of the things that Singapore actually did is this very thing that you're talking about, in terms of mapping an education to what the country wanted to do in the future. That they knew that they were going to be at some level an industrial hub, that they were going to be a manufacturing hub, that there were certain things that they were going to do and they were not going to import labor. That they wanted the people of the country to actually be skilled in these areas, and then they would then be able to compensate them for that skill, having put them through an education system. Do we have proper linkages right now, or is it still in the area of being set up? Do we have proper linkages between these, because these pathways that we're supposedly getting into now are the ones that will actually help us to realize in the future, if wherever it is that the country is being taken to, if you want to have grand infrastructure, then there's a whole plethora of skilled labor that you need, especially if you don't want to import this labor. And that if you want it to be an industrial hub, that you need people skilled in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, you don't want to import labor. So is this being matched to the education that is then being offered in school with that pinhole vision to this is where we want to go? So my question in short, is it a cyclical ecosystem whereby we say we can see the big picture? And this whole thing that we're doing right now is to get Kenyan students to contribute to the economic development of the country?
Yes. When we say we are going to Singapore, we are actually trying to get where the decisions that Singapore made on the matters education in 1980. When we talk about competency-based education today, that is the discussion or the dialogue that was going on in Singapore in 1980. So those are like how many? 40-something years, where they made a decision to have a knowledge-based economy. You think through like you have rightfully said, what do we need to get industrialized? And when the decision to change from the KCSE 844 system to a competency-based education, that is the direction. We are actually on the right path. Saying that we are going to Singapore, I think the journey to Singapore in the space of education started a while back. It's just that we didn't say we are going to Singapore, but Singapore was one of the countries that we were looking at. And of course, as human beings, people don't like change. And the mention of CBE, remember there was so much negativity, it's not possible. Now, if you ask the parents who have children in CBE, especially the ones who've gone into grade 10, they can clearly tell the difference between the child who went through 844 and the child who has gone through, in terms of critical thinking, being engaged in decision making. This is a child who will argue with you if you tell them this water is clear, and they can ask why. And they can now tell you what are the values of water. It is odorless, colorless, and they can perform experiments to confirm that. But when we look at the system that we are facing out, it was about recall. So when I tell you that my child has an A, it may not be an A because of their understanding. It is an A because of their ability to recall.
Or maybe they test well.
Yeah.
Because there's some people who have all the knowledge, but they test very poorly.
Exactly. And we see that when they get to the next level of education. I can tell you, our TVET institutions are already miles away. You know, they're already where we want to be. Because for them, they already made a decision that we are looking at the skills, the competencies. So you find the students spend maybe 30% in class, and the rest of the time is spent in industry and getting the hands-on skills. So when we talk about what Singapore did or what they picked, while looking at abilities, what is the ability of the child, coming up with the systems of education, which today in Kenya are our pathways. The vocational education as a pathway. They have that. That's what we do. And just to remind you, years back, Kenya, before the 844, we had technical schools. And students who went to technical schools would then go to the Kenya Polytechnic. So they would pick a pathway right from Form 2. A student who was, in Form 2 would know, I am strong in this and the other. By the time they get to A level, they're actually specializing.
In that.
That's where when you look at it now, we are going back to that, and that's where Singapore is. They have the vocational schools. They have the technical, normal schools, but those schools that have a lot of technical inclination. Then we have those that are very academic with the pure sciences. And then we have the talent schools, the ones that gifted children either in sports, in music. That's the way it is. And when you look at that and where we are heading to, I think we are on the right path.
If I may, I'm still concerned about this 75%, at least over the last 2 years, who didn't make it to university. And this is a mark that has been set by the Ministry of Education. And we're not saying that didn't make the mark. And I'm not even talking about which other institutions they went to, whether they went to the private institution or the TVET, that there has been a mark that has been set by the Ministry of Education. 75% of those who sat the exam over the last 2 years at least did not meet that mark. So even when we talk about manufacturing all the time, but there are countries on this planet who export knowledge. who send their people out to work in think tanks in different parts of the world, there are countries out of Europe who export education, that you can export minds. So if a ministry has set a mark of a C, and 75% of the cohort, 2 years in a row, at least, we have not even talked about the years before that, do not meet the mark. Is this not an indictment on how we are actually carrying out this transfer of knowledge to these learners? Because we may be talking about this glorious CBE, all well and good, but remember that we still have 2 years of the 844 system at the high school level to go through. 2026, 2027, we'll still go through it. And we are still delivering 1 million KCSE learners into this exam system, upon whose shoulders we're still putting some pressure. And we have that big 75% looking at us. So I wonder, if they haven't met the mark of excellence or requirement set by the ministry, there's failure. So how do we deal with that big number, and how do we say, okay, are we asking questions about transfer of knowledge? Are we asking questions about quality assurance of education? Quality. Are we asking questions about the teachers? Are we asking about retooling? Are we asking those questions, or are we just saying, oh, well, let's try again next year?
Let me just start by correcting you in terms of the measure of excellence. Excellence is not measured by academic performance.
But it is in this case, because you're saying if you don't score C and above, you can't go to university.
You know, look at it even globally. Even the Singapore that we want to go to, how many students get to the university? 80% of the students in Singapore go to TVETs. Yeah. So I think we need to first relax on this C plus thing, because that's where we start putting pressure on the students. That's where we start reducing, I would say, even cheating in schools. Our measure of excellence has been the grades as opposed to the abilities of these children. And you can now see how desperate we want to, how desperate we are to get out of this system. We can't wait to just phase out the system so that we move away from that. I would say it is, the thinking may be very good. You know, whoever thought of the 844, I was in the first class. But where we are, some changes have happened in the way, and it was just time to say, just stop and let's go back to the drawing board. Now, when I say 80% of those in Singapore actually choose the technical or vocational education, other countries, even our neighbors, they are at 30%, 28%. I think the highest I've had is 35%. So we are coming from a worse situation. You remember the time of Matiang'i? We went down as low as 11%. Then we've been coming up slowly. Now we are at, the 27%. But the question is, what were our targets as because you work from targets. Yes. So when you look at
what were the targets, out of curiosity?
The where you can say you are at a safe place as a country in terms of the transition from secondary those into tertiary institutions, but tertiary with the two levels, the technical and vocational education vis-a-vis university. As educationists, the comfortable balance is 30-70. So I see the concern when you have the lower grades, and we all need to accept human beings are not equal. I think the question is, after KCSE, then what next? So that is the question. we want to respond and support the students to walk through. And we have a national conference starting today for the next 3 days to have those conversations and to also have exhibitions with the institutions so that the students can start connecting what I talked about, what they love doing, what they are good at. And I'm glad that we are doing this before we open the portal so that it gives students an opportunity to look through. Remember, they will go into these higher institutions in September. So before now in September, those conversations should be taking place where students are exposed to as many training opportunities as possible. In fact, we are saying even those that got an A walk into a TVET institution. We have now modules. We are training in modular form where a module is 3 months in a TVET institution. Even with your A, you can do a skill like, painting, the wall painting, gypsum installations, baking. Then you start finding yourself so that when we now open the portal for placement, it doesn't mean that if you have an A, you have to go for medicine. You'll have walked through TVETs with different modules, including modules that are around healthcare. Then you ask yourself, am I really comfortable in this space?
You see, for a very long time, one thing that has existed in the country and is categorization. It is a big word because even at the point where you're looking for a job, degree with 15 years experience, there's nowhere where anyone would, it's only few institutions where they'll talk about even getting a diploma. So you find the big population out there wants to end up at the university level because TVETs have been looked down upon for a very long time. Even right now in the CBE, there was talk of decategorizing. But what have we done? We've just categorized them C1, C2, C3, C4. It's just categorization, just a fancy word, whichever you want to look at it. But then as we move into what it is we're discussing now, it is a question of decategorizing and looking at, you are at the university, you are at the TVET, each and every single person has what they can offer into the society. You look at a country like Germany. Who built Germany? It is those who went through the TVET system,
precisely.
Right? Yes. And you look at today, even in Germany, that those who go through campus, but the industry itself wants those who've gone through the TVET system. And because of the way it has been packaged to make it enticing to the population that there is, are we doing that in Kenya to open up this space so that no one feels wherever you end up that I had an A, if I want to be the best welder there is, I can do that and feel like I can still contribute to the community, the society through my craft, And even as we talk about that, are we also looking at how we are improving on facilities, on infrastructure so that our students, our population can be a population of the first world? Because today, one would say it is good that you know how to weld steel. But out there, people are getting into welding what? Welding aluminium. Are we investing into these spaces so that when you leave here, you go and you want to be a motor vehicle engineer, that you know how to handle different kinds of metals? Or are we just stuck to the facilities that we have been using since time immemorial?
Okay. Thank you very much. I would challenge you to walk to the nearest TVET institution that we have. We have the National Polytechnic, that is now what used to be the Nairobi.
Kabete.
No, there's Kabete, and there's the other one on your way near Kariakor, that area. Now it's a National Polytechnic. Like you've said, even Kabete. I would challenge you to walk into these institutions and see the kind of infrastructure the government is investing in. Actually, we had our office partitions done by Kabete National Polytechnic students who are doing those modules. So in terms of, and quite a number of government facilities now, we are looking at government to government, engaging the training institutions, the TVET training institutions, to actually do the work. So when you ask about the aluminium and that is what is being trained now. And whether you have, like I said, an A or an E, if you're going for skills, everybody is. What we are saying is that is not a space for failures. Let's look at this as a space for people who are hungry for skills. I think the problem is not the students. The problem is the parents. Yeah, because with the kind of facilities, even in communication, we know there's a lot of money that young people are making now from social media marketing, photography. You just walk around the city on Sundays, and you see how beautiful the place is with the young people taking photos, and you don't need a degree to do that. Now look at the student who goes into a TVET institution. Within 3 months, they can come out with something. In 2 years, they are way ahead when they are in module 6. They actually lend out money to their counterparts who went to the university, who are doing medicine, and with all due respect to the course, but it takes 6 years to go through. When you look at the performance, again, the students who are so used to cramming, some of them start struggling. So you find in the first year, some will have to repeat. So by the time they are done, they've actually done 7 years. Then they have their 1 year of internship. Then they now get into the job market. Who do they find? The guy we dismissed as a failure with a C or even a D+, who in some cases will even be their landlord. Yeah. So I think it is the mindset. Our problem as a country is the mindset. And if we can, first trust the process. Let us separate education and politics. It really pains me when I hear politicians just, throw words there without knowing how destructive some of those statements can be. Allow us as the technocrats to do the job. We are apolitical, we think through, and whichever government comes, we still play our advisory role, so that people to stop seeing that this is a project of this party, this government or the other. That the advisors, the technical people don't change, even with. So let's not politicize education. If we do that, if we are very clear that we can separate politics and matters education, people can learn to trust the process and know that we are in the right direction. That's for me very important, that just going down at household level, let parents come out and say, indeed, we can see the benefits of this new education system, and then trust that, our children will be okay. Look at it this year. We had the noise about the grade 10 and the placement part of it, but did anybody talk about the assessment of it? No. Nobody challenged the process of assessment. The process of placement is, for me, it is a problem, yes, but it is not the real thing that I should be worried. Now, we had the students who have now gone into junior secondary. Have you heard anything about it, about the junior secondary?
I mean, they went to school.
Yes.
They're not. It's not being publicized as the KCCPS was.
Exactly.
That didn't even come out in public in terms of what KCCPS results and all of that was.
Exactly, because when it comes to the actual issues in education, whether the children learned and whether they actually transitioned safely, and that the parents are comfortable with what the children are turning out to be, the confidence in these children. Nobody is talking about that. And for me, that's the hard, the software, the issues that should be of concern to us as Kenyans. So we are now into grade 10. These children, I can tell you, have an option of 571 subject combinations. Look at that. First, appreciating that they cannot all be the same. Remember, they were doing all the subjects. Now we can look at the different pathways, and a student can say, I'm good in sports, so I will just combine sports, biology, and Mandarin, for example. And we have schools that can now offer that. Can you imagine the confidence that child will come out with in 3 years, rather than that a student who doesn't know whether they are a science or an arts, in terms of their career choices.
Okay.
This one has 3 years to start
figuring it out.
Figuring out, and that's the engagement we are having now at KICC, where come and even understand these subject combinations.
Okay. Are there jobs with government for TVET holders? Is that in the requirement? Because often we see must be a degree holder. Has that now had changed? Has that morphed now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can tell you, even as an employer, COPS being an employer, the skills that we are struggling to get are good people with a diploma in, graphic and design. And we have tried. We have actually right now. We are taking students who are already in college. I know there's a college in Buruburu that has, for the longest time, been very good in producing graphic designers. That's where we are going and saying, hey, we are not replacing this position, because we had a degree holder in graphic and design. And they're very good in theory. But when it comes to the practical part, now we've said, no, we hold on. Let's try these students from the TVET institutions, and they're doing an amazing job. So I can say there are sectors. ICT, for example, COPS system is internally developed. We haven't procured that system. It's developed by our own Kenyans. And the young Kenyans that we have in that department started off from TVET.
Okay.
They have now done their degrees and their masters while on the job. So there's something else
that puzzles me, that we heard sometime early this year, while this whole placement fiasco was going on for grade 10s, that before you sit KCCPS, or in that time, there was supposed to be some career adjunct for students. You should have been able to do a couple of weeks in a career path that you wanted to have chosen, kind of like an internship at grade 8, in grade 9. Things like that was supposed to happen. You should have been attached to someone so that you get an idea. So the question is twofold. Are they aware of the 512 list of subject combinations at that time? And how do you ensure that they actually get this work study? All of these 900 and how many of the 800 and something that sat KCCPS this year? Last year, did all of them do this study attachment for the 3 weeks that they're supposed to? How do we ensure that these things are actually happening? I hazard the guess that many parents were in shock that was actually a requirement, and they didn't even know that should have happened.
Yes, I think, when you have, when you introduce something new, people behave in different ways. There are early adopters who quickly see this is a good thing, and they run with it. And there are naysayers. And there are those who, I would say, were hoping this thing is not real. This system, can we just revert back to the old system? Remember, even after election, there were all those concerns whether should we continue with CBE. And it was very clear that that is the path to go. So we have the early adopters, and we have those that, the laggards who will just, and the naysayers. So there are those who engage their children by seeing, the parents that engage their children by seeing they have a role to play. And you would find, in some hospitals, and Starehe has done this for quite some time, where you find in Kenyatta Hospital, you find Starehe boys or Starehe girls actually having their students there and helping out. So we have people who are okay and are supporting the process. Now, you asked whether these 571 subject combinations were there before. They were there before, and that's what the parents with their students used to choose the schools. They had an option of 12 schools, and what they were looking at were these combinations. Unfortunately, just like the university placement, we have people who come and say, I want KU, I want University of Nairobi, without really looking at what is that institution offering. The same thing, the same mindset. I want Alliance. I want Nairobi School, causing the chaos and the noise that we had, instead of looking at this school can actually offer the subject combination that my child is interested in.
All right. It continues to unfold.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
I would say it's a journey, and Rome was not built in a day. So it will get clearer, and, as we go next year, I expect less or no noise at all. Yeah.
Dr. Agnes Mercy Wahome is the CEO of the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service, has been here with us this morning unpacking some of this. It's going to be an interesting year. Let's see how it all comes out to be. Thank you for joining us this morning in the Situation Room. Looking forward to the next. It continues, guys. It's 9:01. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.